You're listening to the SweetLife Entrepreneur Podcast. Simplified strategies to grow your service business and launch a life you love faster. With business mentor and entrepreneur activator, April Beach.
And then we will go over steps 3 through 7 and kind of talk about each one. And by the way, when you're done with 1 and 2, this is what's coming. Grab Christine's book. Grab a free chapter of Christine's book to get started. What chapter do they get?
They get chapter 1, and they also actually get the introduction, which I don't advertise, but it's like a bonus, so we can say that if we want or not.
Very cool. Okay, yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll do that too. Okay, I love it. I'm so glad that you're here. And then I'll come back, and I'm glad that I don't have to go. I'll come back, and I will read your bio and everything later.
Okay.
Let me note for Brittany when we're starting. Wow, sorry, we've been talking for 20 minutes already on this hashtag mom life. Okay. Let's go here. Make sure all my ringers are off everywhere. All right, you guys, I am really thrilled to be here with Christine McAlister. And the first time we met, we were at this face-to-face in-person conference, and a mutual friend of ours introduced us, and I absolutely love this girl. She's totally fired up for what she does professionally, and she was so pregnant at this conference, and I love that she's just like, I'm owning my mom life, I'm owning my mom space, I'm owning my business and my brand and continuing to build forward. And so we did have to wait a little bit to get her on my books to record the podcast because she has a new 10-week-old baby right now, but she was just going on 100% in all directions at this conference, and I immediately fell in love with her, and I know that you guys will too. And I invited Christine on the show today because she has extensive experience in an area I don't. And that is helping you guys who are in this 9-to-5 job. I've never worked a 9-to-5 job. I've never worked for anybody else. But I know that there's so many of you guys that are out there that listen to this podcast and you absorb the material in the podcast and you want to leave and you're trying to piece it together and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's my exit strategy and what's my plan? And Christine is the one that has totally laid out the plan for you step by step. You don't have to worry. She's going to guide you through the first couple steps in depth today on the show, and then she's going to give you all 7 steps of your exit strategy. And so make sure you get all the show notes and everything we're going to talk about. We'll put in the link for this show so you can grab it. But if this is you, you need to be here. You need to be listening to this. So stick with us until the end. And Christine, thank you so much for being on the SweetLife podcast. Introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and love that we got to meet in person and now are doing this conversation to share with everyone, because I just think what you're doing is awesome. So yes, I'm Christine McAlister. The name of my company is Life with Passion. That's what I'm all about. You've got SweetLife, I've got Life with Passion, right? And I am passionate about helping women get free of the 9-to-5, get free of being unhappy, get free of feeling drained at the end of the day and not having time for the things that they love. And I'm passionate about helping them discover what it is that they are uniquely gifted to do, because I believe that we each have that within us. And I think that my unique gift is helping bring that out in others. So I'm really happy to be here and share with you how you can quit that 9-to-5.
Yeah, and you're so good at it. I mean, you have walked so many ladies through this process. You're not going to brag on yourself, so I'm going to brag on you. 75% of the women that come to you and they say, hey, listen, I want to get out of my full-time job, 75% of them actually do that. That's a crazy statistic, you guys, especially in the business coaching space, to have that type of a result for the clients that come to you seeking help. And so you absolutely know what you're doing. And today you're going to give that actual strategy as fast as we can here on this show to women. And again, I shared this that I don't understand that. Like I said, I've never worked for anybody else. I can only imagine what it must feel like to have this job, even a set job, whether you love it or you don't. It's security. we all can relate to the feeling of security, especially if you have kids and a great insurance and all these other things, a predictable life. It's got to be scary to know in your heart when you have this feeling that I am not supposed to be here. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not what I'm called to do. Yet I have these people that rely on me, and I have no idea where to go from this feeling of having this burning desire that I'm not living the life that, God or whoever designed me to live. What do I do? That makes me cry even thinking about that feeling. And I know a lot of listeners feel like that. So today on the show, you're gonna guide us through these steps of what these ladies who are listening should do. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you. Okay, so where do we start? Usually when women come to you and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, I want to leave. What's some of the things they're saying or some of the things that they're feeling as far as why they want to leave? What are some of the things that you hear?
A lot of times they know that they were meant for more. A lot of times they've just been through some big, difficult transition, like a layoff or a divorce or the difficult / wonderful transition of becoming a mother. And they realize that they want something different for their lives and that they want to live on their terms. A lot of times it's that desire for more travel, to be able to set your own schedule, right? To be able to not have an income cap or this predictable kind of crushing career path for you laid out for the next 40 years where you might get a cost of living increase every year, and other than that, you're waiting for retirement. Ugh. Right? I mean, it's just no way to live, right? And so when you reach that point, then you start looking for help, then you start looking for people who are out there doing what you want to do, and you get the answer shown to you, right? Because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's kind of crazy how that works.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Okay, so the very first thing, and we're going to go through all 7 steps of this extra strategy that you actually detail in your book. But the first thing that we're going to really dive into is you say they need to train their brain to think like entrepreneurs. What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, most of us, at least what I can speak to in American culture and society and the typical education system, we have been trained to think like employees. We have been trained to be really good employees. Just think about it. You have an assignment in school. You get a rubric that says if you get these things, if you cover these things, if you don't have typos, if you include these elements, then you get this grade. So the teacher is your boss from the time you start school. And so then what do? You have this really set path. Traditionally, you go on from high school to some kind of further education, maybe university, maybe grad school, where the cycle is repeated. And then what are you supposed to do with that degree? You're supposed to go out and get a good job, where now you have a boss and you have a job description. And if you hit that job description, then you're led to believe that's the safe, secure thing to do. And you're supposed to do that until you retire, and then retirement looks like the things you wanted your whole life, right?
And we're all old and wrinkly and tired and maybe dead.
Yes,
that sounds
exactly. And there are such a big percentage of us, probably if you're listening to this, that's not the life that you want for yourself, right? But you might be totally overwhelmed, and let's face it, scared about what to do instead or what to do next, because fear is such a powerful motivator, right? I mean, that's how our bodies and our brains are hardwired, and they have been since we were living in tribes, right? Fear is what kept you in the tribe. Fear is what kept you from getting eaten by a lion. Fear is what kept you alive. And in our modern, this is going to sound really cheesy, in our modern culture, we do not have to live like that with the advent of the internet. But it's only been a couple of generations since that even became a possibility as a way to make a living. And really, our brains haven't caught up with it yet. They haven't, much less our DNA. And so it's a conscious choice to recognize and become aware that most of us, I know you're a huge exception, April. You're the rare one. Most of us, myself included, grew up believing the path, even if we wanted something different, the safe path was a job. The safe path was to be able to check the boxes and know that we were doing a good job and we we're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks or every month, and that's what we should do if we're good and responsible and practical people. And for high achievers, we typically are all of those things. So it creates a real values conflict in our brains when we want something different, but we're scared because it's stupid or impractical or you might fail, or all the voices that fill our head, both ours and other people's, when we start thinking about this.
Okay, so wow, you're just hitting. This is a very, very sharp sword that's going to the heart of a lot of our listeners, and I know that it is. And so the very first thing that you say is obviously realizing that you want to go, and these are all the thoughts that people are having. You want to go, that you're supposed to go. By the way, a side note, not to distract what we're going through today, but a lot of our listeners or faithful listeners who subscribe to this show, back on podcast episode number 135, we met with an amazing woman who talked about homeschooling and unschooling for entrepreneurs for the purpose of raising tomorrow's generation of thought leaders. And it's such a cool episode. So if you're listening to this, and we're focusing on you today, but if you're listening to this and you're actually thinking, oh my gosh, shit, my kids are, being trained to be workers too, go back and listen to episode 135 as a supplement to this episode, because it's really eye-opening. So as we're going through here for you, this is your exit strategy. We're getting you out of that 9 to 5. We're giving you the process in which to walk into. So the first thing is obviously train your brain to really start thinking about the fact that this isn't the way the rest of my life has to be. And then the second thing you talked about was really like going inward. You said to me before we started recording that there's a risk of immediately people start looking outward and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, well, what can I do? And you're like going, wait a minute, put on the brakes here. You said go inward first. Let's talk about that too.
Yes. So what happens when we decide we want to do this, or we have an idea we want to do this? What I hear all the time is, well, I love to do that, but I have no idea what I would do.
Yeah.
So we immediately start saying, what would I do? What's around me? What's out there? What would be the quote unquote smart industry to go into? What would be the way to do this that I could immediately start applying myself to feel safe again, right? To feel comfortable moving from being an employee to an entrepreneur. And the truth is that I believe that's the exact opposite way that makes sense to be approaching it, even though it's how everyone does it. So what I recommend instead, and I got this from Dan Miller, who wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love, and has been doing this forever. He says in that book that 85% of the work of designing work that you love is an internal process. That means only 15% is like, oh, what should I do? Right? So 85%. So that means it would be really wise to do that first and next and next and next and next, right?
Right.
So with that in mind, I have something that I call the 3 Ps that I recommend that you check out for designing this for yourself. And that is your personality, your passions, and your preferences. When you combine those 3 things and really get to know those things about yourself and actually do the work to discover those things, honestly, the rest of building out a business that you love is simple, because you have this filter of what is the combination. If you think about like a Venn diagram from science class, right? What is the combination? What is the overlap there in the middle of my personality, my preferences, and my passions? That's the sweet spot of your ideal possibilities for work.
And I love that you said that too. What you didn't say, which I really love, is profit. And it doesn't mean that we're not talking about profit, and profit isn't important, but, and I've said this to you guys forever, if you're not doing something that you're good at and you love and you're passionate about, you're never going to make any money doing it. And I love that, a lot of people go with that profit first, or what can I make the most money doing, or what's the thing that's going to replace my income right away? Well, the answer is none of it if you suck at it and you hate it, So
Might as well go get another job.
Right. I love that you said that. So your 3 Ps are this strategy and formula to find out what in fact is actually then going to be the most profitable for them too. So I absolutely love that. So talk about the next thing, as we're going through this is people then go, and you call this like the epidemic of overload. So when they're getting clarity about their side hustle, they go and absorb, and they get all the books, and they listen to all the podcasts, and they follow all the people, and they have so many freebies downloaded in their inbox. They have absolutely no idea what to do with. How do you help people walk through that process? And when is it time to stop doing it like this? When is it time to stop doing it solo and trying to wing it? And talk a little bit about your story, which you shared with me too, how long you went through the process of trying to build your business like that.
Yeah. I think when you become aware of the possibilities, then suddenly there are a million of them, and Facebook knows that you are interested. And so you get a million more, and it just becomes so easy to be like, oh, I have to grab this, or I need to buy that thing because it's going away, because there are really good marketers out there. And I need this because something outside of me is going to fix me and make me a really successful business. In fact, I was just talking to someone who had taken a huge course in which the only way to deliver that course is a one-size-fits-all training. And she followed it to the letter, and it completely flopped for her. And she was so devastated because she had these great dreams and she believed, in what she was doing, but it obviously wasn't an aligned strategy for her. It was just how it was being taught to the masses. And so when we start to download and whatever, we're already overwhelmed anyway. If we're on social media, our brains are already overwhelmed. Then when we try to start learning how to do something we've never done before, by ourselves, by piecing it together for free, it very quickly can turn us into experiencing analysis paralysis. And even when we do try to sit down at our computers to do something, completely procrastinating because we don't know what to focus on. We don't know what to do, right? And that was me for a decade. So I spent 5 years in jobs that I was highly qualified for and good at, but were in my zone of excellence, not my zone of genius, right? To borrow the terms from the book, The Big Leap. And I was a professor and I was a career counselor. And those are still skills I use now. Hello, helping people design work they love, and teaching and, counseling and all of that. And yet the 9-to-5 did not work for me. I could not, however, figure out for the life of me the strategy to leave. And it was so frustrating on a daily basis. I became very anxious, very depressed, felt like I wasn't living into my potential. I knew I wasn't. And yet I felt like there was some secret that my friends who were doing it had that I didn't. When in truth, I was terrified because I was trying to apply being an employee to being an entrepreneur. And I couldn't see the path, and I was completely overwhelmed because one of my friends said, when you're in the jar, you can't read your own label.
Yeah.
And that was so true for me. And so I was constantly questioning myself, doubting myself. For 5 years, I did that all while building a side hustle. When I finally did quit, I replaced my income in the first month out of my job and went on to be booked out in that business without ever advertising. But what happened is 5 years into that business, I had created another job for myself and I was burnt out. I was, again, really good at it, operating in my zone of excellence. People were happy to pay me. I knew there was something more for me, but because I was kind of still flailing around going, oh yeah, you pay me to do that, you pay me to do that, whatever. I was simply just an employee to the business and to all of my clients. And I wasn't living a life with passion.
Yeah. And for those of you guys who are going through this process and you're afraid that's going to happen to you, or you've already done that, we'll make sure that in the show notes for this guide, I have the ultimate for this show. I have the ultimate guide for the business model that's right for your life. And so you guys can download that and you'll know it's all about business model. You know what exactly you're going to do,
Yes.
how you're going to do that, and how you're going to serve people. And most people don't know the answers to that, especially when they are just starting out. So we'll make sure that resource is in there because it aligns perfectly with everything Christina's talking about today. And then what did you do at that point in time after you've been trying to do it for so long on your own?
Yeah. So I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And I had this story that I was like, if I was smart, I could prove that I was smart by doing it on my own and for free. And what I realized is that had gotten me to replace an education salary, but no further. And that wasn't where I wanted to stay because of the things that I wanted to do in my life, because of what I wanted to be able to do and the ways that I wanted to give back. So I decided that I was going to put some skin in the game and get uncomfortable. And I hired my first coach to mentor me because she had the results that I wanted. And I really resonated with her. And I had never done anything in my life like that before. I went from buying like books used on Amazon to spending thousands of dollars with a coach. It was terrifying. My husband thought I was insane. But I was like, I know that I need to do this because this is how I'm going to figure out what's next for me. This is how I am going to go to the next level. And if I believe that I can learn from this person, then that's really the only question to ask in order to determine whether she was the right fit for me.
So for those of you guys who are listening, if you're at this point where you've been doing it on your own, you know, Christine and I are both advocates. It might be time to get a coach. It might be time to get an expert. If you really want to change your life and you've tried to do it on your own, this is our pull up your big girl britches conversation with you and get the help you need for your niche, for your area of expertise, and for what you want your life to look like. So there are times when, you know, you can do it on your own for a very long period of time, but you might be at a point where if you're listening to this and you've done it all and you're not getting in further, then it is time to hire a coach. Okay, so Christine, now that we've gone through and you have related to so many different people listening to this show, so many different people who, your story is their story, and they fully, or like their heart is aching as they're listening to this. You have actually, you're an expert in helping people walk out of this now. So what is that complete 7-step strategy, like that roadmap that you have, and can you share those steps? We have gone in depth in steps 1 and 2, and Christine is an author. She has an amazing book, and she's given you a free chapter of her book. If you're a listener, make sure you go to the show notes for this and you can download a free chapter. So we've dived in quite a bit to chapters 1 and 2. But can you walk us through the whole entire process and how you lay it out and how you hold women's hands through this from where they are to where they want to be?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks.
The first step, and there are 7, the first step is simply to decide. And a lot of times we are afraid to decide because the Latin roots of the word mean to cut off. So we're afraid we're going to decide wrong and we're going to cut off the options. So sometimes people with side hustles are working 2, 3, or maybe even 4 side hustles, trying to wait until the business proves itself to them before they go all in on it. And that never gets you where you want to be. Never, ever, ever. Because focus is so important, especially when you are working on a side hustle with a full life, with a full-time job, with a family, with friends, with all of those things, right? But if you have focus, give me 15 minutes a day and you're going to make progress, right? So the first step is simply to decide that you are going to do this and make it happen, first of all. And secondly, to decide on one business if you are flailing around with a bunch of different ones, even just for the next 90 days. Just decide for a quarter, just decide. And that business model resource that you mentioned, April, is going to be amazing for helping you once you combine your 3 Ps with that piece of information, helping you decide what that business could be. The second step is mindset. We've talked about this a lot, but it is absolutely critical. While we all want to go straight to the tactical strategies, one of the reasons that so many women quit because of our work together is because they are actually doing the mindset work, right? Usually we come in thinking we need a better strategy, but we actually often need to change the way that we think so that we think like employees. We begin to learn to trust ourselves and what we actually want and work with the possibility that we can build a business around that rather than what someone else told us we should do.
Okay, I love that. So important. All right. What's next?
Yep. So all of these build on each other. So a lot of times if you're struggling, it's because you're trying to take a step where you haven't taken the previous ones. So when you have started working on your mindset, then it's time to start thinking about niche. Time to start thinking about niching and thinking about who you take a stand for, because that is powerful. It's not, who's the market research say is the biggest demographic population in my whatever. It's like, who do you take a stand for? You don't need that many people and you have access to everyone online, right?
Yeah. Right.
So there's no scarcity. There's no lack of clients. I am the rarest personality type on the Myers-Briggs, less than 1% of the population. And so many of my clients come to me with that same personality type because even if I'm the rarest, there's still millions of them in the world, right?
I love that. Yeah.
It's an INFJ, by the way, for any of you listening who are Myers-Briggs geeks like me. Okay. So step number 4, once you know who you take a stand for, then you decide what you're going to offer them. Not the other way around. Not trying to pick what you're going to offer and cramming people into that, right? When you know who you're serving, you have clarity on what they need and what they need most and how to serve them, right? You also will have begun to learn about your personality preferences and passions. So you're going to know things like, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Do you want to work one-on-one with people? Do you want to work in groups? Do you want to work this way? Are you a spontaneous person? Are you structured, right? All that stuff goes together and you get to put that into your offer as well as designing it with your people in mind. Step 5, after you know what you're going to offer, then comes beginning to talk about it to your warm market. These are people you already know. These are people who may want to champion your work or may become clients. A lot of times this is really uncomfortable for us. We want to advertise to strangers on the internet and we don't want to tell our friends and family because what if we fail? However, the process to making money and making sales and getting clients is so much shorter if you start with people who already know, like, and trust you. And this is where it comes back to a mindset thing. Because if you come from a place of service and you truly come from a place of wanting to help people with your thing, then it becomes a lot easier to talk to your friends and family as opposed to feeling weird, icky, salesy, whatever about it. Yeah. So that's what I mean by marketing.
And you're so right. I mean, you're so right about how many people are nervous to share with their closest friends that they're doing something new because they're afraid what people are going to say, or they're afraid they're going to put it out there and then it's not going to work. And so think of it as a marketing strategy, you guys. If you're having trouble going past that and you're still nervous, remove yourself from the friend type of zone and you're now a marketer, you're an entrepreneur, and this is how you develop a tribe of people in those early adopters, those people that we talk about that are, like Christine was saying, that are going to champion your work. They're going to be their cheerleaders for your work. And if they don't need your help, then they're going to tell their friends about you because they're your friend and they want you to be successful. Yes. They really do. And if there's somebody who's not your friend, then just don't tell them. Tell everybody else. Then the people that sabotage you, yeah. I mean, definitely I think there's a place where people that are always naysayers, if you have those people in your life, we want you to cut them off anyway. But if somebody you know is going to sabotage you, don't share with them. But do share it with those people that already do know, like, and trust you. And we want you to think of it as a marketing strategy if you're having trouble getting past that. Okay, so step number 6 then. Step number 5 is marketing. Step number 6.
Step number 6 is visibility. So this is maybe what you would think of when you first think of marketing. It's your chosen, again, based on your strengths, your personality, your chosen way of getting the word out to people who don't know about you yet. And there are a million different ways to do that. And you only need one. You only need one to get to the point where you replace your income. Before you go on 5 platforms, before you start this and that and completely overwhelm yourself, you need one. And again, I recommend that you stick to it for 90 days and get consistent at it. Give yourself the chance to get good at it and give yourself the chance to see results from it.
Love that. So when you're saying one, we're talking about whether it's Facebook or going to networking events or whatever that is. So you're talking both online and offline visibility, or what's your strategy around that?
That totally depends on you. You know, I am an introvert with 2 tiny children, and mama doesn't get out much. So the internet is my friend.
Yeah.
Right? Because of who I can reach. And because also, this is just an example that's specific. So I'm an introvert. I love talking to people one-on-one, which is why I work with clients one-on-one, aligning. I love being a guest on podcasts because I get to talk to one person and it goes out to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I love having these conversations. I'm obviously very animated, but I don't have to leave the house. Right? Most of the time I don't have to shower. It doesn't have to take a ton of time. It can still have a great reach, and I get to form real relationships, which is something my personality really values. So the whole thing, yes, it's a strategy, but also it's really freaking fun. And that is how, for me, that is how your visibility should feel.
Wow. Love it. Okay. And then the last step of your exit strategy steps for our listeners.
Yes. So the last step is sales. Step 7 is sales. This includes having the conversations, doing the follow-ups, which most people don't do, and doing them in a non-sleazy, like congruent, genuine, authentic way, building relationships, and continuing to bring in, of course, steps 5 and 6, right? Your visibility, in order to bring in people who might be interested in buying from you. Really and truly, that's a business plan. It is that simple. And it's flexible and malleable for if you want to be the life of the party and go to networking events, and you can, because you don't have tiny children crawling all over you, like, go do it, right? If you are working during nap time on the weekends and you need to pre-record some stuff because that's all the time you have to yourself for a hot minute, you could do that too, right? It's about seeing the possibilities here and seeing that really it's simple. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy because your brain is going to try to tell you it's hard, but when the mindset is strong, the strategy is simple. And that's why we start with mindset.
Man, thank you so much, Christine. We went over so much today. So we covered the 7 steps. Those of you guys that this is your heart and you're ready to do this and you are ready to live life with passion, then Christine has totally laid out the steps here for you, but we know it's hard to implement them through a podcast. And especially if you have kids or you're actually like secretly listening to this during your 9-to-5 job and you're not supposed to be
in the bathroom,
and you're like taking notes. So we're going to make sure that all the resources that Christine mentioned for you here and everything, there's a recap of all of this is in the hub for you at sweetlifepodcast.com. And you are going to get a free chapter of Christine's book. You are going to get, oh my gosh, the income replacement formula. That is the title of this book. If you're looking behind the scenes and you're watching this on YouTube, Christine's like holding up this cute book with this sexy picture of her on the cover. And it's such a good strategy. And I appreciate your expertise and your wisdom bringing this to the table. I want you guys who are listening to use this step by step. It's proven. Everything that we've delivered to you on the show is not just some theory of how we think you might be able to leave your 9-to-5. Christine knows what she's doing. She's an expert in this area. She has laid out this complete strategy for you step by step here on the podcast. We've dove into the first 2 steps in depth. We've given you additional resources for it, and you have access to Christine and her book, and she's giving you a free chapter of her book. And another introductory part of this book, which she doesn't even talk about, that she gives away. It's like this whole bonus thing, and that's going to you too. So make sure that you grab all of the resources in our show notes from today's episode. And Christine, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. How can people connect with you directly online in different places?
Thank you for having me. Yes, I would love to see you in my private Facebook group, the Passionate and Profitable Entrepreneur Society, or on Instagram at LifeWPassion.
Love it. Awesome. All right. You guys have an awesome day. We trust that you're going to go grab those resources. You know where they are. There's no excuses. It's all laid out for you. And thanks for being on the show today, Christine.
Thank you.